All right, with 49er training camp underway, joining us on the Sports Leader today on the UMA guest line is Chase Sr., who does an incredible job covering the Niners for Chat Sports. And he's a great follow on X as well. And he's with us on the UMA guest line to chop it all up and talk a little Niners. Hey, Chase, what's going on?
Larry, what's going on? Thanks for having me. Anytime I'm on KNBR, the Sports Leader, it's an absolute honor. And it's always great talking some Niners football, especially with training camp underway. And next week, practice is in session. I cannot wait.
Well, you have put out a lot of content. Tell people right now, like what's out there right now. If they go to Chat Sports, if they're checking you out on YouTube, I know you worked on a couple videos today. What's the latest?
Yeah, so I'm the host of the 49ers Report. We have over 160,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're reaching millions and millions of people every month, long form content, short form content. And my goal every time I'm talking Niners is to be as informative, entertaining, insightful, thought provoking as possible. But I always want to get the audience involved. And I think that I give people a unique perspective. I kind of like to say my on air personality is a little bit of a combination between a Colin Cowherd and a Pat McAfee. I like to make people laugh, but I also like to make people think a little bit. And I think you and I have gotten along over time talking Niners on the Krueger show because we see the game in a way where we're able to relay our thoughts, our opinions, and our analysis in a way that the viewers really like. And it just comes down to our football knowledge as well. And so on the 49ers Report right now, today, for instance, I talked about the latest around Jauan Jennings, looking at some trade destinations for him, why a trade to the Steelers from the Steelers' perspective could make sense, why a trade to the Raiders from the Raiders' standpoint could make sense. But I also made the argument why it's an easy decision for San Francisco to pay Jauan Jennings now, especially if it's in that neighborhood of $11 to $15 million, considering the player who he is, the importance that he's played on this Niners team, how clutch he's been, the rapport that he's had with Brock Purdy, the great player developmental story that he's been for San Francisco. And I think that his game is going to continue to age well. Good size. He's never been fast, but he's a really shifty, decisive route runner who uses his body and his body control to kind of box out DBs to throw, to open up throwing lanes for Brock Purdy. And so I talked about that. And then I also discussed 5 Niners with the most to prove and the most pressure on them going into 2025. So check that video out as well.
I want to ask you about that, but let's hit on JJ first. He's scheduled to make $7.5 million this year. He's got a contract. And yet 8 days before camp opened, his agent, the veteran, Drew Rosenhaus, who's done this for a lot of years, said, hey, JJ either wants a contract extension or he wants to be traded, and he wants it all done before the 22nd when the veterans report. So do the Niners trade him? Do they extend him short term? Do they extend him long term? And then the question is, what does he want, right? What does he want? And the rumor that I heard, and I don't know if it's accurate, but this is what I heard, that he wants Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy money. That's $15 million to $17.5 AAV. That's more than double what he's due to make this year. So if that is indeed the case, because I think if you can come to an agreement where you give him a little bit more money, and you love him, he loves you, you drafted him, the Niners are the only organization he's ever known. I don't really think he wants out. I just think he wants a few more bucks. But let's just say that is it, because we don't really know the particulars. But let's just say JJ and Rosenhaus came to the Niners and said, hey, Lynch, we want 15 to 17.5 per on a multi-year deal, and we ain't taking less. Do you trade him or do you pay him what he wants?
I think that's too much. And for Jauan Jennings to put him in the same conversation as a Jerry Jeudy or a Cooper Kupp is unrealistic. We're talking about a player here who's been extremely valuable to San Francisco, who last year had a career year with 975 receiving yards. And if he didn't get kicked out of that regular season finale against the Cardinals because he was too physical as a run blocker, he would have been over 1,000 yards receiving. But context is always important, right? And while he had a career year last year, nearly surpassed 1,000 yards, that was the only productive season of his career. And he did it on an offense that was the second most injured offense in the National Football League. He is not a number one. I think he's a very good number two and an excellent upper echelon number 3, but he shouldn't be in the market for Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy money. And I get where Jennings is coming from. He's a former 7th round pick. He wasn't even on the 53 coming out of Tennessee his rookie year in 2020. Every year that he's been in the NFL, he's progressed, he's improved, he's gotten better. And it's not like he's made a lot of money in his career. And last year, he was underpaid by the Niners. He also looks at the wide receiver market absolutely exploding, with wide receivers routinely getting 25 plus, 30 plus, 40 plus $million per year. And he knows that the Niners are feeling a little bit of pressure because of the uncertainty and the question marks at the wide receiver position, with Brandon Ayuk coming off the knee injury. Ricky Pearsall's had 2 hamstring issues in 2 years and the shoulder injury. And while he flashed last year, he's an unknown commodity. We're not sure if Demarcus Robinson is going to get suspended because of the DUI arrest. We have no idea who Jacob Cowing is as a player. And while Jordan Watkins impressed during the spring, he's a rookie, and Kyle Shanahan has been notoriously hard on wide receivers. But at some point, the Niners have to say, look, all of your points are valid, but you have one good year of production. We'll give you 11 to 15 million. If you want more than that, that's fine. But you have to prove in 2025 that you're worthy of a deal like that. Do it again like you did in 2024. And if you do that, it'll pay off for you. And when you hit free agency next offseason, that's when you can cash in. But it's not going to be by us right now. We'll give you 11 to 15, but that's a sticking point in negotiations.
Yeah, what happened to the old, hey, I'm going to gamble on myself?
Yep.
You know, if JJ really wants to get that big payday, gamble on yourself. Have a big year. There's no Ayuk. There's no Debo. Pearsall's not established. Cowing and Watkins aren't established. You're the guy. You're going to get the ball. You're going to get, the ball a lot, you would think, on paper. And if you have a big year and you ball out, yeah, you're staring at 3 years, $45 million potentially from somebody. I guess I would counter if the Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy ask is accurate, and that he wants, hey man, pay me 15 to 17.5. I want to be in the Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy neighborhood. I would push back if I was Parag and Lynch and say, hey, look, I don't think you're Cooper Kupp. I don't think you're Jerry Jeudy. But how about Darius Slayton money? Darius Slayton signed with the New York Giants. He signed a 3-year, $36 million deal. That's $12 million a year, $22 million guaranteed at signing. You want that? Let's do that. You know what? Let's sign you up, and we'll make it. We won't rip up 7.5 this year. You'll still make your 7.5 this year, but we'll make it the balance of the deal so it's a 3-year, $36 million deal, and the AAV is $12 million per year. If he's willing to do that, that's as far as I would go as the 49ers. If it's no, that's still not enough, then I'm trading him.
Yeah, and I think that you could get a 4th or a 5th round pick back for him. If you do trade him, it is pretty risky. He had a great connection with Brock Purdy last year, and then the aforementioned question marks at wide receiver. But if you can get a 4th or a 5th, maybe even a young wide receiver with something to prove, like an Xavier Hutchinson from the Houston Texans, who gives you similar size to Jauan Jennings, maybe that deal is worth it. But I do think at the end of the day, just because I don't think that it's realistic for Jennings to get that much, that the Niners find some type of resolution, either a short-term contract in that, 11 to 15 year per year range, as I mentioned, or they could just double a salary for this year and say, with what you did last year, you were underpaid. We'll compensate you for that because you certainly earned it. And you've been a great player for us, a great leader for us on and off the field. People look at you as a leader, but if you want that long-term extension, you're going to have to go out there and prove it.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't separate, and the Niners were 32nd in separation. And to me, if you want to make Brock Purdy look better, get some receivers that create a little space. Get some receivers that can separate. If you can't separate, every ball is a 50-50 ball. Every ball is a potential pick. Every ball is a potential interception. If JJ ran better, maybe I'd be a little bit more encouraged about paying him long term. But I'm drawing my line in the sand right there. If he wants Darius Slayton money, we can work it out. If he wants Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy money, it's time to go. You mentioned the Steelers and Raiders. How do you envision, I'll tell you the deal that I would love to see. I'd love to see the Niners get like Michael Mayer and like a day 3 pick. If I could get Michael Mayer in a day 3 pick, I'd move Jauan Jennings to the Raiders. I saw the move in Bleacher Report that was tied to the Raiders was Trey Tucker, I think, in a 3rd round pick, which, that's, I don't hate that either. Trey Tucker doesn't float my boat, but he's fast. He's a replacement receiver, and that 3rd round pick is plenty. How do you see trades between the Niners and Steelers and Niners and Raiders?
Yeah, by the way, with those separation numbers that you brought up, I just want to pass along some interesting numbers to your audience. Purdy had to force the ball into coverage more often last year. Despite that, he completed 2% more passes than expected, 9th in the NFL, nearly identical to his 2023 mark of plus 2.5. And last year, despite having the 2nd most injured offense around him, he was number 3 in yards per attempt, number 4 in success rate, and number 5 in EPA per attempt. That's pretty damn good for Brock Purdy. He also was number 1 best completion rate on passes of 10 plus yards downfield, even with players not being able to separate. So interesting stuff there for the audience. As far as Raiders and Steelers, so the Steelers have clearly gone all in. Their transactions speak for themselves. Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith. They also traded for DK Metcalf, but they traded away George Pickens. And so all of their moves have pointed to them going all in for 2025. They also just made TJ Watt the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. They clearly think as an organization that they can compete at a championship level this year. They don't have that long-term option at quarterback, obviously, because Aaron Rodgers is entering the final year, according to him. And so their number 2 wideout is in a precarious spot right now. Either Calvin Austin, who is like 5'9" on a good day, or Roman Wilson, who they took in the 3rd round last year out of Michigan, who barely played as a rookie. I think he's more of a slot guy. And so Jauan Jennings to Pittsburgh would make a lot of sense with how they play, physical. A lot of people inside that building are said to compare him to Hines Ward, a franchise legend for that organization. And I think Jennings to the Steelers would make a lot of sense with what they want to do on offense. They want to run it a lot, and they want to play downhill, tough, rugged, physical. Jennings fits that. And then for the Raiders, all of their moves have pointed to them thinking that they can win soon and at the very least compete right away. Like, you don't hire Pete Carroll in his 70s for a rebuilding process that's going to take 5 years. You don't trade for Geno Smith if you don't think that you can be competitive soon. You don't draft a running back inside the top 10 if you don't think that you can find success somewhat early on. They also paid Max Crosby $35+ million per year. Their number 1 is Jacoby Myers. Jauan Jennings, I think, would fit really well there. And with Las Vegas being a little bit desperate in need of a wide receiver, maybe you could convince them, if you can't get things worked out with Jennings and he's very firm on wanting to get dealt, for the Raiders to give you better compensation than what you get from other teams because of that desperation level.
I'll tell you another team that I think makes a lot of sense for Jennings if you're going to cross the bridge of, okay, we can't satisfy him on a contract. Let's move him to somebody who can. And the Niners obviously have the cap room to do it, but if they opt not to, I think the Jets make a lot of sense. The Jets, the Jets have obviously Justin Fields. They're going to kind of define themselves this year as a running football team. I think you're going to see a lot more of Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis. They drafted Donovan Edwards. They're gonna try to run the ball. They got Armand Membu at right tackle. They've got Fashanu at left tackle, and they just signed Garrett Wilson to an extension. I think, Robert Saleh was just there, so there might be some defensive players still on that side of the ball that he might like that, could be thrown into the mix in a potential trade. But I'll tell you this. I mean, I'm looking at the Jets. I'd take Malachi Corley and take a shot that he could be a Debo-like figure in this 49er offense. He's a young receiver in year 2. I'd take a Malachi Corley in a day 3 pick. I'm not looking to break the bank for Jennings. Just give me a replacement receiver that, I can utilize, that can add to my core, and maybe some draft pick in 2026, and I'm willing to make a deal. I think, I don't know. I mean, the Niners sound like they really are adamant about getting him signed. So obviously maybe they feel like there's a path there to getting him signed. But if he really wants big money, I would move him. And to me, the Jets, because Jauan is such a good blocker in the run game, and they're such, they have such an emphasis this year on running the ball. I think he'd be the perfect fit for them. And they probably have a couple pieces that would satisfy the Niners.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
No, I looked at the Jets too. They gave Garrett Wilson that big pay raise on that contract extension. They paid Sauce Gardner, but their wide receiver room, like the Raiders and the Steelers, you're sensing a consistent theme here, is not good. And he could be an excellent number 2 alongside Garrett Wilson. Now, I'm not a big believer in Justin Fields. He has not been an accurate passer in his NFL career. He can't really throw, see, or process over the middle. But the Jets are going to be a heavy running attack. They haven't extended Breece Hall yet, so they could just decide to run him into the ground, running some RPO with Fields could work out well. And with Jennings being one of the top blocking wide receivers in the game, he'd be a fit there. And I think that he'd be a good cultural figure for Aaron Glenn, who's trying to build a new culture with that new regime in New York.
Yeah, that's a good call. Chase Sr. with us on the UMA guest line as we chop it up on the Niners. Rookies reported on the 15th. The vets report on the 22nd. And it is on for Niner training camp in 2025, and we'll be there every step of the way, including all next week from Santa Clara. So fired up about that. JD and I will be sitting in next week, I believe, for Papa and Silver in the middle of the day on the leader. All right, your other article is about guys who have pressure on them.
Yep.
Without giving your entire article away, because I don't want you to give it away on the radio. We want people to go check it out. But tease it a little bit. Is there a name or two you can share with us? And is Alfred Collins, who just recently signed the rookie defensive tackle, breaking up the log jam of unsigned second-round picks, 88% of his deals guaranteed?
Yep.
Did he make the list of guys with lots of pressure?
So my list is guys who are entering make or break years. So I don't think it's fair to put a rookie on there. I'm more so looking at seasoned players who have a lot to play for in 2025. And so I did include Jauan Jennings. Let's just say, Larry, he doesn't get a new deal and he thinks that he's worth between $15 and $20 million. Go out there and try to earn that bag. And if he produces in 2025, like he did in 2024, he will get highly compensated. A player like Colton McKivitz is entering the final year of his contract. He improved a lot year over year from 2023 to 2024. Now, the pressure allowed numbers the last 2 years have been very concerning, but a solid run blocker. I always think he's going to be in that okay to good territory, but with the offensive tackle market buzzing and him going into the final year of his contract, if he plays well, he could cash in. A player like D. Winters has an opportunity to not only lock down a starting job, but solidify himself as a legitimate linebacker in this league. He had an 80 coverage grade, according to Pro Football Focus last year. That was 6th among 189 linebackers, obviously a small sample size, but with his play style, playing with fire, speed, and physicality, and some potential in coverage, he could become a very important player for the Niners this year. Jason Pinnock has a lot of skills at safety. He could start because of that Malik Mustafa knee injury. And if you were to glance at his sack, quarterback hit, and TFL numbers, he plays very well downhill. What did the Niners do with Talanoa Hufanga? They hid him in coverage, played him around the line, and he was always around the ball. I think Pinnock could be that type of guy. He told Matt Mayoko a couple of weeks ago he wants to be an all-pro and a starter this year. Well, you can revive your career after playing for so many defensive coordinators in recent years with the New York Giants. And then a player like Yetur Gross-Matos, right? He was the 6th pick in the second round in 2020. 6'5", 266 pounds, 82 and a quarter inch wingspan. But all he's been so far is potential. He can play a really big role as a backup edge. And if he doesn't, he's just going to flame out in his career. So that's a player with a lot of pressure on him as well.
Yeah, very interesting group of guys. How do you want to see the backfield split up this year? I mean, I kind of like it on paper, right? You got Christian, you got Juice back, then you got Garendo in year 2. He looked amazing last year. Now we're going to see him, with a full knowledge of the offense. And they took Jordan James in the 5th round out of Oregon. They still have Patrick Taylor, who was actually pretty impressive last year. Still have Izzy Abinaconda, I'm a big fan of his. He's got 4.3 speed. He's 220 pounds. They got Corey Kiner as an undrafted player. They've been so good at picking undrafted backs under Bobby T. How do you, to me, I love McCaffrey, but this like blank check that they've given him in the past of like, you tell us and we'll just adapt. I think it should be a little bit more like, let's manage Christian. Let's keep track of his touches. Let's not overexpose him. You have other guys. I think it's a really deep and talented running back room this year. I'd like to see them spread around the violence. I mean, let's be honest. These guys, the running backs, take a lot of hits. They're subjected to a lot of violence. Let's spread that around. Let's get to Super Bowl Sunday with juice at full tilt. I feel like the Niners haven't had that, and that's probably why they fell short.
This is what I would do at the running back position for the Niners in 2025. Christian McCaffrey just turned 29 years old in June, and he's coming off a year in which he only played 4 games, did not score a touchdown, and had bilateral Achilles tendonitis and then the knee injury. We know how running backs can seemingly age overnight and lose it. And McCaffrey has missed 10 or more games in 3 of the last 5 years. He's missed a lot of time. And so there's a chance that he's not the same player this year. Let's see early in the year. Let's split the carries up a little bit. Give McCaffrey 15 to 20 carries per game. I also want to see Kyle Shanahan adapt, evolve, and come up with creative types of formations and plays. And so you split back a little bit with McCaffrey and Isaac Guerendo. Utilize Kyle Juszczyk from time to time. I want to sell this to Christian McCaffrey. You're an excellent route runner and receiver. Let's flex you out wide. Let's put you in the slot. Let's throw some screen passes. Let's use him as a decoy in the backfield where he sprints out of the backfield. Then you either run a passing play to a different direction or you have misdirection out of the backfield. Get creative, Kyle Shanahan. It's time for us to see some new wrinkles within this offense. And then speaking of McCaffrey's workload, Isaac Guerendo is such a unique and dynamic player. At 220 pounds, he's a 4.3 guy with physicality, with the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield on screen passes. Kyle Shanahan doesn't throw enough screen passes. Guerendo is capable there, but he's a home run threat every time he gets his hands on the ball. And so I want to see him getting at least 10 carries per game. 10 to 15 is probably the range. And then if you need to spell a Guerendo or Christian McCaffrey, that's when you implement the rookie 5th round pick Jordan James, who has really good contact balance, who did not have a fumble at all throughout his entire college career in Oregon. He can pick up yards after contact. That's an area where the Niners really struggled last year. And so I think that you can really survive by giving carries to those 3 backs. Kyle Juszczyk is your fullback. And if you want to carry another running back, it can be Patrick Taylor. But to me, he's really just a special teams player.
Last one. Appreciate your time. Chase Sr. with us from Chat Sports, covers the Niners, does a great job. He's with us on the Uma guest line. I was talking to a scouting buddy of mine this week, and I'll let him remain nameless to protect his anonymity because he does work for a pro team. He's like, Krug, you don't use my name on the radio, do you? I'm like, no, I don't use your name. But I asked him, I said, hey, this is one of my buddies that really thinks outside the box. Like he's not going with the flow. He's an independent thinker. He's been scouting for 25 years. And he's been with the team he's been with for the last 10 or 12 years. So he's absolutely safely ensconced in the scouting community. I said, give me the most underrated. We were debating. I said, I've got a name for the most underrated pickup of the offseason. Give me yours. And he goes, give me yours first. So I said, my underrated pickup is Mac Jones, because I really believe that Brock Purdy is deep down. I think he's one of the most competitive quarterbacks in football. I think his greatest trait. You say, what's his greatest trait? It's not his quickness. It's not his processing. It's his competitiveness. He's a crazy competitor. He wants to win the Super Bowl. I mean, he's not happy with that they haven't won the Super Bowl. He wants to win a Super Bowl. He sees himself winning multiple Super Bowls. And I just think that the addition of Mac Jones is such a great thing because, yeah, they played it like they're buddies, but they're not buddies. And Brock Purdy doesn't want Mac Jones to ever play. And Mac Jones is, even though he would never say it publicly, is probably rooting that Brock gets hurt so he gets in there and can reestablish his career. But I just think that paying Brock Purdy was essential, but getting Brock Purdy in the right motivation. I don't think it's accidental that his down year was when there wasn't another quarterback right there. When he was good, there were other guys. There was competition. When he backslid this last year was Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs. So getting a true NFL starter, I think, is really underrated. I think it's guarantees that you get absolutely the most motivated and determined Brock Purdy, and I think it's very, very valuable to have a guy who can absolutely take his job sitting right there off his shoulder. So I think Mac Jones is the most underrated pickup of the offseason. But my buddy said, okay, I'll see your Mac Jones. He goes, I think their best pickup of the offseason. And I'm waiting for it. I think he's going to say Nick Martin. And I'm thinking maybe he'll say Saleh. Oh, he's going to go, he's going Bryce Huff. Guess who he went with? He went with Curtis Rourke.
Interesting.
The Maple Missile. He goes, and he kept calling him the Maple Missile. I'm like, dude, if you call him
it's a great
the Maple
nickname.
Missile one more time, I'm coming through this phone. We were just joking around. But, yeah, he says that Curtis Rourke, who's going to spend probably the whole year rehabbing the torn ACL he's probably going to spend most of the year on the NFI list. He can be activated anytime. He's like, Krug, this guy threw for 3,000 yards. He threw for 30 touchdowns. He did it. He took Indiana to the college football playoff. He was there in 1 year. He really made an impact on the program, and he played this way and led them to this playoff with a torn ACL. He's like, this kid's accurate. He's smart. It's important to him. He's going to be very good. When it's all said and done, he says Curtis Rourke will be the best Niner pickup of this offseason. I just said, wow, bro.
Fascinating.
That is. I mean, I've and considering this guy is a pro scout, not just some guy. This guy really does. He gets paid for his opinion. I was like, wow, dude. That's a great one. I'm going to steal that and use that in a future live stream. He's like, use it. So I don't know what we stream weekly, but we don't talk not a lot. What have you heard from the people that you talk to about Curtis Rourke? What do you think of that?
Well, what's so impressive about Rourke? His toughness. He played all of last year on a torn ACL. Think about how hard that is to do.
Yeah.
Indiana made it to the college football playoff. They had the best season in program history. And with what I saw from him last year and what other people who I've talked to saw, they loved his toughness. They like the arm strength. They think it's good enough. But what makes Purdy special is the timing, accuracy, anticipation, and processing. Curtis Rourke, at his size and toughness to hang in the pocket and take hits, also layers balls in there in a similar way to Purdy. And in Kyle Shanahan's offense, a lot of it is timing based. And I think Rourke does that at a really high level. It's not like he was throwing to a lot of NFL caliber players either. And so I think he's going to redshirt this year with that knee injury. Niners aren't going to let him see the daylight in the preseason because they don't want other people to poach him or snatch him up. And that's why they put Purdy on the 53-man roster as a rookie a couple of years ago. I'm excited to see his development. I'm excited to see what Kyle Shanahan can do with a player like Rourke. I mean, I know people can rip Shanahan, but let's be real. He's maximized the likes of C.J. Beathard, Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo he made it to a Super Bowl with. And he maximized Brock Purdy to a point where Purdy was top 5 in MVP voting a couple of years ago. Now he's the top 10 highest paid quarterback in the NFL. So you go Curtis Rourke. I'm going to go Robert Saleh. I think the upgrade from Nick Sorensen to Saleh is drastic. I think that the pickup of Saleh is one of the best additions that any team has made this offseason. Trades, free agency, in the draft. It's like going from your high school sweetheart who's a 5'10" to Livy Dunn. I mean, it is a massive upgrade going from Sorensen to Robert Saleh, one of the top defensive minds in the game.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I think most people, you know what? I think if we threw that out to most Niner fans, I think most Niner fans would probably go with that one too. Robert Saleh. Interesting stuff. Chase, awesome, man. Tell people once again if they want to check you out on Chat Sports. You got the the blowtorch, the 50,000 watt KNBR audience hearing you. Tell them how they can find you.
Yeah, so it's the 49ers Report on YouTube. Again, over 160,000 subscribers, doing multiple shows every single day on a long form basis. And then you can give me a follow on X and Instagram. It's at Chase_Senior on both platforms. A lot of people always wonder, is Senior your real last name? I always say yes. And then they follow that up with, okay, well, do you have a Chase Jr. or will you name your future son Chase Jr.? And I always say no, because in today's society, he would get bullied throughout his entire upbringing because people would call him Chase Senior Jr. and then I would be called Chase Senior Senior. So that's not going to happen, in case you're wondering or curious.
That is awesome. Everybody check out Chase on Chat. We got more straight ahead. Larry Krueger sitting in, getting ready for Giants and Blue Jays coming up shortly on The Sports Leader.